When looking for the king of podcasts, you're at the wrong channel.
Well, excuse me!
Looking for good ideas for life? You're far from good hands.
Hey, bud, what's your problem?
If you think the listener is always right, you're far from the right place.
Out of order! Even in the future, nothing works!
Hosted by a Northeasterner by birth, but a rebel by choice.
Are you threatening me?
If you want a host that floats between love and madness,
and we know the night is always gonna be here anyway. Thinking of you's working up my appetite, looking forward to a little afternoon delight.
then play on and listen to Crazy Train Radio.
All right, guys, listen to this blues riff and B. Watch me for the changes and try and keep up, okay?
Within the gaming world, there are your general gamers, but then there are those that enjoy the dark underbelly of gaming. If you're one of those that enjoy the dark underbelly of gaming, we certainly got the place to send you. Scorpion Lair Games. That's right, Scorpion Lair Games is the creators of the true crime hit Killers, the card game. Let's not forget they also have Killers Clothing Company, their profiler game, and things like the 5-Minute Murder channel on YouTube. And we certainly can't forget the new book that is certainly a hit, Beyond the Headliners, True Crimes, Myths, and Legends. Make sure you visit Jeff and the Scorpion Lair Games on Facebook and everywhere today.
Hello, everybody. I am David Sahadi, and I insist you listen to Crazy Train Radio. It is very insightful, and it's a lot of fun as well.
Hey folks, it's your least favorite host in the podcast world, Croc, Jonathan Steele. And boy, do we have a good one for you today. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this next guest is an Emmy Award-winning producer, director, and writer, best known for his time and work as a creative director at WWE, where he conceived and directed over 300 national commercials, 3 of them which aired during the Super Bowl. He is currently the lead media producer for RAF Wrestling, which is the first unscripted professional wrestling league for freestyle wrestling, and was launched in August of 2025. Let's welcome back David Sahadi.
Hello.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
David, how you been, man?
Great, Jonathan. How you doing, my friend?
Oh, no complaints. And like I said, had you on, you did a book, I guess it was 24 or 25. You had that other book out.
It was 23, end of 23.
Oh, wow.
Early 24. I think we didn't do the PR tour until 24, though. So you're right about that. It was probably 24.
Right on.
Yeah.
So, but you got going on now another book, and that being Backstage Pass, Tales from Beyond the Squared Circle. What led you to, well, for guys like me, it'd be obvious, but why dive into this book now?
I was doing the tour and the interviews for my book, My Dad, My Dying Son, because my father meant the world to me. He was my mentor. He was my life. He was everything. And as I'm doing these radio shows and these podcasts, people are asking me to tell them wrestling stories. They didn't care so much about the story of a father and a son. So I would tell wrestling stories. I remember Tommy Dreamer specifically on Busted Open said, "Wow, that's a great story. I never heard that before." And when I heard that, I said to myself, why am I giving away these stories for free? They're not stories that have to do with the book, My Dad, My Dying Son. So I said, why don't I write my own book, my own memoir? Because being somebody from production behind the scenes, I have perspective that has never been, displayed out there before. And I have stories that aren't about, titles and winning matches and big events. It's about what leads into these big events, the making of a commercial, working with all these athletes. And it's always a journey of my life as I'm evolving, as I'm growing up through all these different stages of, working at NBC first and working at WWE, joining them when it's low, watching it rise, and not only seeing my journey and my evolution unfold when I look back and started writing this book, but also the talent that I work with as well. Seeing how people handle adversity, that was a wonderful thing, because some rose to success and were in the spotlight and they handled it in different ways. Some were very humble when they got very famous. Some were very conceited. Their egos inflated. And then there were those who tried so hard and they worked just as hard as anybody else, but they never quite reached the pinnacle of success that they wanted to. But it's the way they carry themselves during successes and defeats that I found the most fascinating. And that's what this book is a lot about. It's about stories that haven't been told before, but also the human element of it, of myself evolving and learning through the medium of pro wrestling, about life itself, actually. And watching how, other human beings, these talent, these producers, evolved and grew as well, some for the better and a few for the worse.
Absolutely. And some of the superstars mentioned in the book include guys like Stone Cold, Steve Austin, Vince McMahon, The Undertaker, Flair, Hogan, Jeff Jarrett, Bischoff, and some guy I think he's going to make a name for himself in Hollywood one day. Just an inclination, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Yeah.
So, and many others. So, you talk about the human perspective and as everybody in the industry was rising and, just how the ebbs and flows and things. And I hate to be negative for the one story, but you did a lot of your stuff out of the office, correct? Or were you on the road with everybody?
I was not on the road for Raw, except when we did some kind of special shoot. Like we did an ID shoot with all the talent, and we did one in Miami because The Rock was back from Hollywood. And he was in David. He was doing a house match that night, so we figured, hey, it's easy for The Rock to do one there. But most of my work was done either in LA or in South Beach. There was a big production hub down in South Beach during the late 90s and early 2000s. So we were going back and forth and doing stuff there with pretty healthy budgets because WWE was doing well at that time, and it was fun. So my ideas would come at home or in the office, but usually when I'm home or driving somewhere in the car, and then I'll just do these shoots on the road that would last about a week between, the prepping, the shooting, the filming, and then the editing of the spots.
Yeah, no, because the reason, and that's interesting to know, and obviously I know all about that, the prep, I say whether you're doing a podcast, doing what you did for the spots, whatever the case is, no matter the medium you're doing, you break it down into three parts: the pre-production, whether it be writing, scripting, all that stuff, the actual production, shoot, taping, whatever. Then you have the editing and putting the final package together. But were you on the road with them because I was just watching on TV a special on it, the Owen Hart tragedy. Were you on the road or were you elsewhere for that?
I was elsewhere for that. I was home. And I was watching the pay-per-view because I'm in charge of doing all the cold opens for the pay-per-views back then at that time. And it was just one of the saddest nights of my life. It's just, I loved Owen. I met Owen when I first came there. My first day on the job in Regina, California, Canada. And he was just completely ribbing me the entire night. He was following me around for 3 hours. Hi, I'm Owen. I didn't know what was up with this guy, but he just ribbing me. That's all. He was a great guy. He put a master lock around my thing, him and the British Bulldog. So I formed a bond with Owen very quickly. And when I heard the news and we were told to like erase every single ISO what happened, because we didn't want anything to get out, obviously. Anybody see that? It was just sad. It was just so sad. I couldn't even look at what happened. I never even saw it happen. People do that. I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to see, Owen going out that way. I've heard wonderful stories that Owen had of courage as he was falling, just like, warning the people down below to watch out.
Jimmy
or something to that
Corderas,
effect. Yeah. And it's just like, that just shows you testament of what Owen Hart, the man that he was, that, his life might be possibly ending as he's falling, and he's worried about somebody else's life down below. And it's just, just one of the saddest days ever in professional wrestling for me. Sure, for a lot of people as well.
So with that being said, and I hate, like I said, I'm not trying to gotcha. That's never been my style or live in a negative. But being you were in the production side of things,
yes,
are you saying that there's never been anything saved of that? Because obviously there was the criminal and the investigations and then the lawsuits and all that stuff. So none of that stuff was saved.
I believe that
away.
We were told to erase everything, and I wasn't in charge of erasing everything. It was our videotape engineers. But the reason given at the time why, and I still believe it's the truth, is because they didn't want anybody to like get a copy of that and like show Owen Hart, a man dying, on the internet in any kind of way. It wasn't because they're trying to hide anything criminal. Not if something's come out about that is news to me, to be honest with you. But I never.
You know how the internet is. People like to chirp and.
Yeah, but to me, it was just like, we don't want anybody showing a tragedy, in any kind of way, and that's going to live forever and ever on the internet in one way or another. So that was the reason why we were told, it's just a man died, just like we don't want anybody to see that,
Absolutely. All right, let's go more positive with this. And like I said, you've worked with
that's a negative, but it also shows what a great man Owen Hart was. That it's like
absolutely
decades later that we're still talking about it, and we still care about this man. I almost got a little welled up talking about it. It's just. I'm glad you went there. It's just, Owen was a wonderful human being as well as a great wrestler.
And you mentioned the Bulldog, who was known for screwing with people too.
Yeah.
I wasn't there. I don't know. I wasn't there. But that's a whole other, because those two were, frickin' frack when messing with people.
They were quite the team. They tagged me that one night. Yeah, because Owen was distracting me when Bulldog put that master lock on my pants. And kept it there all night long.
Old master lock.
Yeah.
I've heard plenty of them with taking guys' bags in the locker room. Yeah, master lock.
Think about this from my perspective. And in the book, I leave NBC Sports begrudgingly. I wanted to stay. They would offer me a lot more money. I was willing to stay for half that amount of money. They thought I was bluffing. And so to make a long story short, I leave NBC begrudgingly. They wanted to bring me back once they made a decision. But I'm a man, once I make a decision, then too late. I'm not going back. I'm not going to let Vince McMahon down. So my first day on the job in Regina, Canada, there was Owen and Bulldog playing this for me. I'm seeing Kamala reading the New York Times. I'm seeing Duke the Doink the Drums, Josie. I'm seeing Doink the Clown. And I'm like, what kind of world am I getting into? Because I just left the world of Michael Jordan, of Magic Johnson, of Don Mattingly, of NFL, MLB, NBA basketball. And now I hear all these cartoony characters and they're all playing ribs on me. I'm like, what the heck kind of world is this?
What did I sign up for here?
Yeah, exactly. Because NBC was very, pristine and corporate, and like you did things a certain way. You didn't have fun at NBC Sports. But I knew there's nothing, malicious about what they're doing. It was just pranking. But it's like, I've never been pranked so much in one night, especially by Pat Patterson, who told me a funny joke. Yeah, I know. But it was like everybody on one single night. And I'm like, oh my gosh, went back to the hotel room. I couldn't sleep. My head was still spinning.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
So obviously you've worked with a cast of characters, and I named just a few.
Yes.
And you mentioned about things were kind of so, business wise, things were rough. But then you saw the evolution of what became the Attitude Era and all that stuff.
Yeah, you're starting by a single spot in a way, but I'll ask a question. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna ask with that. When, from your perspective of things, did the uptick start to happen? That, hey, you know what? We're starting to get more budgets. We're starting to do this. Where it allowed you to do more and grandiose things and your creativity.
Yeah. There was a moment of desperation. I believe it was in 1995, the fall of 1995, when WCW was kicking our asses. And Vince McMahon called Kevin Dunn, Chris Chambers, Jim Johnson, and myself. And I believe Adam Panucci was now in the inner circle as well. Adam Panucci is a tremendous producer and editor that's there. And Vince just looked battered and beaten. And he said words to this effect. I'm paraphrasing right now, but this is the effect of like, hey guys, we're getting our asses kicked and we're losing money. And if we don't turn this around soon, we might be out of business. I believe they had taken a lien out on Titan Towers because Vince Linda owned that just to make payroll for a couple of weeks. So that was a nadir. That was like the bottom. And Chris Chambers and I had written a spot that ended with the word attitude. I know you're thinking I'm not really a wrestler. I'm not really an athlete. I'm just a wrestler. Well, I've done this, I've done that. It really put these talent over as real athletes, not just as cartoon characters. And it was a great spot. And I ended it with the word just attitude at the very end. We didn't have the attitude ever then. We weren't calling ourselves attitude. We just put attitude at the end of that spot. When I wrote the copy, and Chris Chambers and we showed it to Vince hated the copy in that meeting when he was desperate. And when he left, Kevin Dunn says, do it anyway. He'll see it when he likes it. And we've all been thinking about other years that we wanted to change things around. So I produced that spot with attitude at the end of it. And you see all these athletes, being somber and being real, mixed in with highlights. And it's their own words and their own voices. And Vince saw that and he loved that spot. And then all of a sudden that just ignited like a haystack that was already building and getting ready to set on fire. So it's not I who created the Attitude Era. I was part of it. I'd say it was Kevin Dunn, Chris Chambers, myself, and Anna Panucci, the four of us that really got together. But once that spark started, then all of a sudden creators started writing more edgier stuff. Packages started getting cut edgier. Storylines were edgier. Everything became edgier. I remember that Vince was pitching the idea of the Titantron at first. I was not there, secondhand accounts, I believe by Kevin Dunn and Chris Chambers. And he hated the idea at first. And they were telling him, well, Vince, it's great because we go to concerts. They have these big screens and we can put entrance videos up there. We can do all this kind of stuff. So Vince kind of fell into the Attitude Era by accident because he didn't like any ideas until he saw them. Whereas we all, like once that spot came out, we just started to do things differently. And we say, hey, we're desperate right now. We're fighting. We're not going to go down this easy. So that attitude thing led up to, I would say, the Mike Tyson era with him and Stone Cold Steve Austin. And that was the big breakthrough moment, But it was all this attitude spots and the way we were starting to do things that led up to that thing where, Vince welcomes Mike Tyson to the ring and Stone Cold Steve Austin, ruins Vince's party. And then that made national news, and that really catapulted us, I think, to getting that rocket ship, up there and eventually beating WCW.
Yeah, because obviously, the stuff on screen, like you said, first it was the Brett thing, Montreal. Then when you said January after the holidays passed, the Rumble with the Tyson, and that started going that direction. What we saw on screen, but I remember the production spots that you are talking about with guys saying, hey, I played college football, I did this, talking about their what they did as folks. When producing spots or the commercials or whatever you were asked to do as you went along, were there guys who were difficult in trying to accomplish what you wanted to do, or were most of them going, hey, this is what we want to do, this is the theme we're going with, all right, and they ran with it?
Well, at first they were all great because it was something new. Nobody was doing these image spots before. Nobody was doing ID shoots before with these guys. So everybody was really great at first. And I just want to give shouts out to The Undertaker because he was my favorite wrestler to ever work with, because I did about 15 shoots with him, and they're always at nighttime in abandoned warehouses in Connecticut or on an abandoned dock in New York City where it's dark, it's cold, because we're using pyro with The Undertaker. So at nighttime, that's when the explosions look the best. In darkness, everything looks the best. And I'll just call him and I'd say, hey, Marco, we have a shoot next week. He goes, I know, it's in a warehouse, right? I said, yep. And he goes, yeah, it's sunset to sunrise, correct? And I'm like, yep. I said, do you need anything? We have a production trailer for you to keep warm. I can get you a production assistant for anything you want to eat. He goes, David, all I need is a case of Coors Light and a bottle of Jack Daniels. That was during his drinking days then. But I mean, you never could tell that he was intoxicated. He would get his lines out first and we'd do a take and we'd look at that. And I'd say, what do you think, Mark? He goes, that looks great. What do you think? I said, yeah, I think it looks great. We're going to relight. He goes, how long would that take? I said, about 20, 25 minutes. So just have somebody knock on my door a minute before, we shoot. And he was never late. Sure enough, like 2 weeks beforehand, I'd send somebody out there to knock on his door. Right there on time. We never had to wait for the guy. And he was just sitting alone in this trailer, ice cold. And never once complained because he knew how this would help his character look, larger than life. This almost mythical godlike character, not godlike, but just like, wow, the arms, the explosions, rest in peace. It took his character to a whole different level. And he knew that. So he never once complained, never once backed out of a shoot or anything like that. There were other talent that were difficult to work with. Stone Cold wasn't difficult, but he was very distrusting. He was very paranoid. So that character, don't trust anybody, DTA was really true. That's how Stone Cold was. So he'd question everything I wanted to do. And he usually liked it, but it was just like always questions, why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? And there are some other talent that were difficult to work with as well, who changed over time as I talked about the journey of how a character goes from one way to another. Some people handle success very well and with humility, and some people handle it with like, hey, I'm the greatest thing on earth. And there's, some guys who handle it that way. And all of a sudden, David Sahadi, who helped them at WWE, or should I say the entire production staff, they became second nature to, Hollywood and things like that. And that was a little hurtful because, we helped build them as stars, an entire collective team, not just myself. And when you help somebody who's a nobody become a somebody, then become a champion, then you go to Hollywood, you think there'd at least be that, acknowledgement like, hey, thanks for helping me get my start. But, in one case with a certain guy, The Rock, it was complete distance when he got very popular, complete distance and separation. And somebody who I thought was a friend at first when he was, training. And I told him he was going to be a star before he was ever on TV because he had that smile, very humble, just like, could blow me off a couple of times. So it was that was disheartening. It really was.
Well, with that being said, have you seen him in recent years? Or
nope, I have not. I've not talked to him in recent years. My last shoot with him did not go very well. And sadly, that's my last, time I ever worked with The Rock. It was in the spring of 1993. I left in the summer of 1993.
93 or 2003, you mean?
Sorry, 2003. I apologize so much.
No, okay. No, you're good.
It's only half a cup of coffee, and that's why. So it's
it's all good.
I was off by a decade, but I had the sleep right.
It's is what it is. Because we're talking about these spots you did with when things were changing. Were you involved with? Because I think Brian Gewortz, as they would say, Brian, I love you. You've been great to me. But were you a part of those ones with the Legends as well? If I remember correctly,
the Legends
we had Gorilla and Freddie Blassie and all those.
Yeah, to make a distinction, Brian and Vince Russo, they wrote television. They wrote the pre-tapes that would happen backstage and different things they would do. But anything that was a commercial, I was autonomous on that. So the Legend spot with classic Freddie Blassie, with Gorilla Monsoon, with Pat Patterson, with Killer Kowalski, I conceived of that spot on my own. And I didn't even run that spot by Vince McMahon. To me, that was a follow-up to the first Attitude spot that you were mentioning earlier about the athletes talking about themselves. And that spot was to legitimize these wrestlers as, hey, man, they're athletes as well. Don't look down on them. And that's me coming from an NBC Sports perspective of real athletes, where I want to present these guys as real athletes because they really were. I mean, some of these guys can do amazing things. They weren't just, guys in costumes. So we shipped them down to the Attitude spot. And a few months later, I wanted to do a follow-up. And it was a Legend spot. And my logic was that, hey, this is the passing of the torch. So we start with Freddie Blassie saying, I can still hear the echoes calling my name. Time has not silenced the crowd. I never did this, I never did that. We were men of courage, we were men of steel. They are men without fear. So it's a passing of the torch from the older guys to the new generation of wrestlers. And when Vince McMahon first heard about that spot, he called Kevin Dunn. And he was furious because he goes, what the hell is Sahadi doing with the older guys up there in Albany? We were shooting actually in Troy, right across from Albany, Troy, New York. And Kevin goes to Vince, well, you know what? Sahadi has a good track record with this, so I trust it's going to be good. I don't know. He just gave me the general idea, and he's up there doing that. And Vince is like, well, better damn be good, or I'm going to be pissed off. And 3 days later, we finish the spot, and Vince comes down there with Shane and with Pat Patterson, and they're watching the spot, the Attitude spot that you talked about, the Legend spot. And Vince, 15 seconds in, is like, oh, God. And it's like, oh, gosh, geez. And he's getting very emotional, I can tell. And right as the tag page is coming up, he walks out of the room and goes, gosh, dang it. And I turned to Shane and said, Shane, what does that mean? He goes, Sahadi, you got him. You got him good. And I walk outside, and I kid you not, Vince is sitting on his ass, wearing a suit on the concrete floor of the studios, and he's crying his eyes out. And he's saying, thank you, David. Thank you so much. Thank you. I mean, he's just in tears crying. And I wasn't exactly sure why. And I walked upstairs and told Kevin Dunn that Vince liked it, I think. So he was crying about it, thanking me about that. And he says, good job. I can't wait to see it. And as I'm walking down the hallway to the outdoor area, where the reception area is, Vince is sitting down on the stairs again with his son, with Pat Patterson. He's crying as well, saying, thank you, thank you. So it's 20 minutes of crying. And I didn't know exactly why I touched him so much, but I think a couple of years later, the spot was not only passing the torch of the older wrestlers who didn't fly through the air, didn't do moonsaults, and do all that, high risk stuff. It was also passing the torch from Vince Sr. to Vince Jr. So I think it really hit Vince McMahon on a visceral personal level.
Yeah.
I think that's why emotionally it struck a chord with him, because he saw it a different way than I intended that. I intended that as a passing the torch from the old generation to the new generation of wrestlers, where Vince took that as a passing the torch from his father to him. And, hey, Daddy, look what I've done with what, you gave me the chance to, what I purchased. You thought I was going to fail, and I've exceeded expectations. So I think that's why it hit Vince so hard. But all those kind of spots are what I conceived of those. The Brock Lesnar spot, with the shark on the ocean for SummerSlam. The spots with Kane and Pete Rose. One was Trick or Treat. Just all those image spots. The baseball spot where Kane is at bat that we aired during the baseball playoffs. Those are commercial spots. And Dave Gerwitz, tremendous writer, tremendously creative. I never really had any interaction with Dave. I respect him a lot, but like when it came to these commercial advertisements, Brian Gerwitz, yes, sorry.
Yeah, right.
Brian Gerwitz and Vince. So it's like I pretty much did those spots on my own, including the Super Bowl spots as well. That era, they were just my writings, because again, it's creative as far as advertising. That was me, and the creative as far as the show. That was them. I was the advertising side of it. My title was the creative director of on-air promotion. So if that clarifies anything. If it was a commercial or a spot or a campaign, that was me. If it was something that aired in the show, that was, something that was taped on the road, that was them.
Yeah. Who did you usually report to? Was it Kevin Dunn or was it Vince directly?
Both in the beginning, and I like that. Always Kevin Dunn first, but Vince and I, when we were small, and then when we were first starting to, grow and escalate, became one. Vince and I would always have a Friday afternoon meeting, at the end of his day, because I'd always pitch him some current idea, and I gesticulate a lot. I'm from New York. So I'd be like, Vince, imagine the spot. Think of Field of Dreams. We have this farmer. He's like, boom, he's building something. He's building. And Vince's smile would start to broaden. And he's like, just like in the movie, like he's building something in the cornfield. What is this, baseball field? And as a crane rises, we see it's a wrestling ring. And then all of a sudden we hear like this rumble of the mountain, these Amish come. And then we see like the cornfield rather than these little people come. And like they meet in the ring. It's like, it's horrible. The other guy goes, that's not what I had in mind. And then we cut to shots of our stars. And Vince would love whenever I pitch him an idea. Whether he went for the idea or not, he just loved, I think. He was entertained by my enthusiasm, my excitement. And I really like those one-on-one meetings with Vince. We have them just about every single Friday. And they're awesome. They're fun because they're just casual. We're just spitting out ideas for creative spots.
Absolutely.
Because we had one thing that was called, there were commercial spots that were 30-second spots. And when they started out being tape spots, I'd promote our events. There were cross-channel spots. So say you're watching ESPN. If you're watching ESPN in New York and ESPN in California, they have like local commercial time for the local, broadcaster or cable network that's delivering that, whether it's Time Warner, whether it's Xfinity or something like that. And we were doing like typical wrestling spots. Hey, on Sunday, it's so-and-so versus so-and-so, this guy versus that guy. And I'm thinking, you know what, this is a sports audience, or it could be a Fox News or CNN audience that's watching this. They might not be familiar with this kind of stuff. And that's what led me to do these creative spots that were the fish out of water, like the Royal Rumble spot that was, the cornfield turned into a wrestling ring gone bad. The spot with Brock Lesnar and the Sharks. I'm thinking, here's an audience that probably does not know who the WWE is, so let's just do a funny spot to keep their attention, get their attention, and at the end we tag it with what the event's about. And it's free advertising, and we're branding ourselves. So for 3 years, that's what I did, and that helped with success as well, because why pitch a card to somebody who's not a wrestling fan? Why not do something funny? Whereas take the Kane spot, No Mercy, for an era during the baseball playoffs. We're doing a spot for a baseball audience. So we have John Sterling, who's the famous announcer in New York Yankees, saying, it all comes down to this. Bottom of the ninth for the big red machine. And you see like guys that look like the Yankees, the pitcher, the catcher, the fingers down there. And as he says, a big red machine, the camera pans over and it's Kane, who's at bat. Takes a mighty swing. This could be it. The crowd rises, they're cheering, and it's a dribbler to the pitcher. But as the pitcher gets it, he gets speared by Edge. As the ball's thrown to first base, another guy takes out the first baseman. The Hardy brothers come off the ladders and take out the second baseman, the shortstop. Farouk takes out the third baseman, which is played by Frankie Kazarian, who also played the catcher, I should say. And he played 3 roles, takes him out. So, it was just a fun, entertaining spot that if you're not a wrestling fan, hey, that was a pretty funny spot. But as a baseball fan, it's just airing a baseball game. You think it's a spot about baseball for the first 9 seconds until you see it's like a wrestler wearing a costume. in red, but you're watching right now because you're intrigued. So that's how I built our brand for free by doing these spots for the pay-per-views each month that were fish outside of the water, I would say, kind of spots like a Yokozuna restaurant, things like that, which you wouldn't picture wrestlers to be in, wearing their gear while everybody else is dressed, in a normal way, whether it's baseball players or people in an office wearing war clothes. And I think those helped us a lot in, attention and brand our image to people that were not wrestling fans, because wrestling fans are going to watch. My job is to get the non-wrestling fans to watch and to grow our audience.
Absolutely, and I totally agree with the wrestling fans, even though they say what they do and bitch and moan and all that stuff, they're still going to watch. And I always appreciate you trying to get other eyes from different avenues to at least tune in for a couple of weeks and see what you were all about. But speaking of working on the brand, I mentioned during the introduction about working with the freestyle wrestling organization. That was Hogan and Bischoff, correct?
Yeah.
Starting out initially.
That was.
When did you become involved?
Right from the beginning. I'm wearing my RAF shirt on right now. I have to brag about it. But I have never been more excited and enthusiastic about I don't even want to say a job, let's just say an endeavor in 20 years since RAF. And I'll get back to your question, but these athletes they're amazing. They're the world's most elite athletes, the way they train. I mean, there's no shortcuts, there's no compromise. Their training, it's the most grueling training of any sport that there is out there. I always say, it's a bit of an exaggeration when I say 6 weeks, but the other part is, I always say 6 weeks of training, 6 hours a day, 6 days a week for a 6-minute match. And it's amazing what they have to go through because they can't be at 95% or they're going to lose. They have to be at 100%. So the idea was first brought about by Chad Bronson and Hulk Hogan. They'd worked together on Real American Beer. Chad took Hulk to a wrestling event, and Hulk was captivated by that. He was just like, oh my gosh, this has to be on TV. We need a professional league. And Chad's like, they've tried. There isn't one. He goes, brother, we got to start getting a professional league. So Hulk Hogan called Eric. Chad called Izzy Bronstein, who is, I think he trains Team America for the Olympics. They're all the co-founders. And then the next phone call was to me from Eric Bischoff. Eric Bischoff called me. And I was both honored and delighted. He asked me to come up with the budget. And over time, as we were talking about the idea, the budget grew bigger and bigger. But it's just such a joy to be part of something this is February, so it wasn't even an idea 1 year ago. It wasn't even an idea until March or April, or probably like late April, because I got the phone call from Eric in the first week of May. And it was just like, he pitched me his vision of how he wanted to present this. It's real. It's a sport. You can gamble on it right now. So that's why it has to be real and legitimized and, judged the way that it is. But we can bring some entertainment to with entrances, with things that we're going to do down the road. We want to, stay true to the hardcore Olympic style wrestling fan first. But it's just like, wow. I mean, so many people are so grateful for this league that I'm just so happy to be able to create something that people are talking about right now, a league that never, ever existed before. When I joined the WWF, as it was called back in 1992, I mean, they've been around for a while. Same thing with NBC Sports earlier, but this is something that never existed before. And others had tried and failed. And if I can go on a little bit longer, if you don't mind.
No.
I interviewed Chael Sonnen in Chicago right before RAF 03. We just finished RAF 05 2 weeks ago. And he's interviewing Ben Askren, a famous Olympian, UFC fighter as well, who had a double lung transplant, who's part of, Team RAF. And Eric says during the interview, why don't you talk a little bit about RAF? And this is what Chael Sonnen said. I'm going to speak in his voice right now. He said, yeah, so Ben, I don't know what you think, but, I was told about this idea about Real American Freestyle Wrestling from Eric Bischoff. And, I think it's just going to be one-off. I've done other one-offs before, they're never more than that. They never amount to anything. So I'm like, hey, at least I'll get to say I work with Eric Bischoff, who's a legend, and I got to sit next to Kurt Angle for, 4 hours during the night, calling matches. So if nothing more, that's a great one to take away from it. And he goes, the day I walked on the set that morning and I saw the staging, I'm like, oh my gosh, they might be onto something here, because it was so big. It was bigger than the Olympics, the way it looked. And then when it went on air, back until Tony's perspective, he's like, I was just amazed at how professional the crew was, how great everything was, how they pulled this thing off. And the next day I went home to my mother and she goes, son, how'd it go? And I started crying. And she goes, son, what's wrong? Did it fail? And he goes, no, mama, no, they finally got it right. We finally have a pro wrestling league that's going to last. It's going to be around. So when I hear that, because I believed in the idea to begin with. I had faith in that, but I only had that Chael even had doubts about that, even on day one, until he stepped on that stage and saw what we were doing, and then became an instant believer. It's just like, wow, it's just amazing. It's just we create something that never existed before, that people wanted for so long. Not just the wrestlers as a place to go to when they're done, with their Olympic careers and NCAA careers, but for the fans that never had this national outlet to watch wrestling on. And there were so many young kids in our audience. We had our biggest audience ever at our last show in Sunrise, just outside of Miami. We had, I think we quadrupled our buy rate on Fox Nation, and they extended our contract just last week because of that. But it's just amazing to create something that has taken off so fast. And we're just keeping pure to the sport itself. And we're doing some entertaining things like profile pieces so you get to know who these people are before matches. We want to humanize these athletes. They're used to walking out there very stoic when they're at the Olympics, at the NCAA finals, very stoic, show no emotion, do your thing and whatever. But we want them to show their flair. We want them to be who they are when they're coming out to the match. That's their time to shine and do their personality. Be charismatic. Be whatever you want. Do nothing if you don't want to do anything, but just be yourself. Have fun. The whistle blows. It's all business. It's done. Have fun again. And we're going to do some fun things, in some of the pre-tapes and some packages as well going forward now that we're got the foundation of it down pretty well. But we're constantly evolving. Every show is getting better. And it's just, my gosh, it's just, I feel honored. I feel blessed. It's not a job. It's a joy. I was up last night, and Eric's probably giving me a hard time. He calls it a vampire until 4 o'clock in the morning because I was working on a package that's going to air in the show. And we're going to do a promo that's going to air later on this week, a commercial. And it's just like, I didn't want to stop working. So I just kept on working late in the night. And I like working nights because it's quiet. After about 10 o'clock, the emails stop, the text stop, the phone call stop. So I can get on my laptop with my headsets on and focus to know I'm not going to get interruption by anybody. And that's my passion. Keep me up last night until 4 o'clock in the morning. I just didn't want to stop. I was working on something that was really good. I didn't want to say, let me pick it up tomorrow. I was just in that zone. And just a zone of just like, wow, creation and joy. It's hard to explain, but if you're a creative person, I think you are, you understand that when you get those moments, you don't want to let them go. If the faucet of creativity is running, you keep on going until that faucet stops. And if you turn that faucet on and water's not coming out, then you don't even continue. You put your laptop down or whatever you're working on, and you come back some other day.
Absolutely.
So that was me last night, yeah.
No, I totally get that. And I like to think I'm a little bit creative. So obviously you had the experience with NBC Sports. You went and worked for WWE, and now you're with the new group and all.
Real American Freestyle. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Which, like you said, it's on Fox Nation.
Fox
if
Nation.
People want to see it. So Eric calls you though and says, "Hey, we got this idea. This is and lays everything out for you." How do you go about, in your mind, working and putting things together based on what Eric told you of the concept, but also how has it evolved since episode 1 and you said you just finished part 5. So how has your creativity let loose at the beginning of things, and how would you say it's evolved to where we're at now?
I'll say how it's evolved first and go back to the evolution of things.
Sure.
The first show, the first show is historic, but we knew there were some flaws in production. We knew that it went 3.5 hours. There was only 10 matches, and it was just too long. There were dead spots there. We ran too many packages. We had two packages before every single match, and there's a lot of dead time between matches. So over the last 5 shows, we just slowed it down. We cut out things. We kept the pace moving faster. So it's a lot more exciting. We actually had 12 matches instead of 10. And instead of 3.5 hours, our last show was 2 hours and 45 minutes. And that's the aim that we want to keep it at, about 2 hours and 45 minutes. Just so anything after 3 hours, I think, and Eric Bishop does well, you start to lose people, you start to get bored. So we picked up the pace, and we learned how certain microphones weren't picking up the referees and the grunts and the moans of the athletes themselves, who are really, they're going 100%. Even when they're locked up like that, they're each going 100%. It's so physically exerting on the talent. So we've enhanced the way we pick up audio. We've enhanced the way we pick up cameras just by learning and doing, and me looking at tape and saying, hey, this is too long. Hey, we can tighten this up. Hey, we can get cameras over here instead. Let's get microphones there. So we're growing as we're doing this thing. Every single show, I do a post-mortem on. I look at that and I mark what we did well, what we could do better. So we're constantly be better every single show that we're doing. But when they were calling me, getting back to your original question, how it started was I know this guy from RAF Wrestling. His name is James Vero. Let's just say James Vero for now. He has a ton of contacts in the industry, and so do I. So I called him to head up the production team with me. And I knew people from TNA like Greg Horn, who's our set designer. He knew people who do lighting like Jake Bronsky, who has done lighting for UFC, has done lighting for big time events. We hired producers and directors that, have worked the World Series. They've worked the Olympics. They've worked NFL. So it's a top tier layer of production. And James and I hired, let's just say the lieutenants, the 5 main lieutenants, and they hired their people. And then we added cinematographers there that shoot stuff days before and the days of. It's such a tight, compact, and such a great unit of backstage personnel that are all stars in themselves. I mean, award-winning, Emmy-winning producers and directors themselves, and lighting people that have won Emmys as well. All didn't know each other, all came together for the first show, and we're all meshing together as well. We're knowing how each other works and what strengths and weaknesses are. And so the production team, it's just like a collection of all stars, but from different areas, all coming together, working together for the first time. And we've kept that team intact. And that team is so excited about RAF. And that's the reason why we're getting better, because we're learning what's working, what's not. We're learning how to tighten it up. We're learning how to make things fly. So there's no dead air and no dead time. Like sometimes you have in UFC in between fights. There's a lot of fill, a lot of announcer talk. And it's wonderful watching it grow. We're not even where we want to be just yet, as far as production wise. Because we still want to refine and tweak. But Eric said where we are right now with viewership, he's thought it'd take us a year and a half to get there. And we're there after just 5 shows. And that's pretty amazing. It really is for a starter, for a league that never existed before, a professional league. That's very impressive. And that's hats off to everybody. I play a small part in that. It's a team effort all across the board. And that's another great thing. I remember in WWE, when I first joined the WWF, there was just, everyone was in a fraction. Everyone was on this team and that team and that team. There's a lot of backstabbing there. But here at RAF, the corporates, the wrestling side, the production side, we're all in this together. We all feel like a family. There's no animosity between anybody or any department. And we're still adding infrastructure as we go along, which is great. And it's just hate to say kumbaya and happy vibes everywhere, but I've never been at a company where it really is that way. Everybody's working together. Everybody's happy. Everybody's in wonder, like how we pull this show off. It was the best show yet, which means RF06 is going to be our best show yet. That's our goal, to always have the best show every time we do one. And just the way everybody's working together, and there's no hiding anything. There's no I want to tell this person so I get the credit. It's a complete team, and it's just amazing. It's beautiful to watch.
So you mentioned a few minutes ago that you just got a new deal with Fox Nation for RF. So what is the length of that deal? But also, how often are you looking to have shows? Is it once a month? What are we looking? What's the goal from where we sit right now?
Absolutely, that's a great question. It is the contract got renewed starting in May for another year, possibly 2. I know that RAF is being sought after by other networks, which I don't want to mention. But so Fox has a take for the next year and a half or 2.5 years, depending on what the contract language says on who has the rights of the monthly, let's just say the big show. Let's just call it a pay-per-view since it's on Fox Nation, which is a streaming service. They have the rights to that. We're also planning on starting a weekly show sometime in the second quarter that is going to feed into the bigger show. It won't be as large of a scale, but it's going to add to our roster. And there are a lot of people that want to come to RAF and be on the roster, so we can expand our roster right now. And these weekly shows will feed into the monthly big show. So it's a natural progression of having this weekly show where the 4 weeks lead into the big show, whether it's an elimination, tournament one month, no matter what it is. It's just like there are going to be consequences that happen in this weekly show that might be on Fox Nation or might be somewhere else that's going to lead to the big show on Fox Nation, the 3-hour mega show. And it's either going to be a 1-hour show or a 2-hour show, depending on what the network wants. But there's talks in the work, and there's 3 parties that are interested in that, as well as down the road, a reality series as well, a reality show about this. So, I mean, it's already, I wouldn't say it's going too fast for us, but it's going a lot faster than we thought. That's why we're still adding infrastructure. And that's a great thing, because normally it's the other way around. You build a great team, and it takes years or something to start to take off and catch on. And this thing caught on quicker than we thought that it would. And that's wonderful. That's great. It's a good problem to have.
Yeah. Now, being that right now you're just signed with Fox Nation, but things
Yes.
might open up, like you said, with TV and all that
On
other
the weekly
stuff.
show, yes. On the weekly show.
Yes. Yeah, depending on, stay tuned on that. But with as we sit right now, how much say does Fox Nation have on the final product? Or do they say, you guys handle the show, whatever you want to do? This is your ball, you run with it, we're just airing. Or are they, hey, trying to their hands in a cookie jar, let's say?
They're a great partner. We work together with them, exchanging footage, doing different things, but they have no say in the matchmaking, the format of the show, or anything like that. We have great talks with them. I'm not sure what happens on the corporate side with Fox and our corporate department, but as far as production is concerned, they don't have any input in production whatsoever. It's autonomous. We run that. Myself and my partner James, we run production, both live and post. James's foot is more in live. My foot's more in post, but it's in both. I also oversee the show, how the show is going to run, the format, where we might want to add some things, and basically with the formatting of the show. Once we get the matches, we have these weekly calls with Eric Bischoff, and on the phone calls, it's just four people. It's Eric, James, John Norton, an award-winning producer who is tremendous. I mean, the best producer I've ever worked with in the history of television, and Eric. And they're fun because it's just the four of us for an hour or so, and we go over the format and we say what we like, what we don't like, and we pitch ideas, and it's relaxed and it's laid back, and we'll have about 3 or 4 of those before each show begins, and they amp up like as we get closer and closer to the show and the card gets finalized, and they're just fun. So Fox has no say in that whatsoever. Eric has a say in everything that is television, production, marketing. Chad and Izzy have everything to say with the wrestling side of it, the matchmaking, who we're going to sign, what we're going to do, what's going to happen. Storylines, they're full in wrestling. You mentioned earlier in sports entertainment wrestling that a lot of the fans bicker and bitch and moan. Well, that's because they care. But our fans care as well. They just go about it in a different kind of a way. So that's a good thing. But the storylines that we have, these things are happening naturally. I don't know if you heard about the Colby Covington, Bo Nickel stuff that's going on, but
I have.
There was So we don't have to write storylines. They're actually writing themselves, and we're having athletes that are unexpectedly calling out other athletes from the UFC or the areas of MMA to come fight them, and a lot of them have accepted those challenges. I know that White Hendrickson threw out a challenge to Logan Paul for a wrestling match down the road. I'm not sure if Logan Paul has accepted that yet, but there's going to be something on the internet, back and forth on social media, with these two guys egging each other on, like, "Oh, you chicken, this and that for not coming here." But like, Bo Nickel called out Colby Covington on our last show live for a match in the future, and Colby Covington, we thought he was going to, on his post-match promo, call out Bo Nickel and accept the challenge. He called out somebody who's retired, I think, as an insult to Bo, to get him really, really, really pissed off. But they'll get, I think, eventually meet down the road, and I would not be surprised if one day you see a wrestling match and you'll fight. I hope not, but it's just, tempers are tempers and humans are humans, and you never know what's going to happen.
Absolutely. And hey, at the end of the day, if we can make a good TV product out of it, why not, right?
Yeah, I mean, I hope that doesn't happen because it's a stain on the sport. But I'm just saying, these emotions between them right now, maybe they've cooled off, but they were so hot. They were so hot that day of. I mean, there was legit heat. There was hate and disgust for each other in the way they were talking about each other in stuff that we didn't air. We took the high road, but it's just, wow, I can't believe they said that, But basically, Bo Nickel was wrestling a top-notch wrestler, and he thought that, him and Yoel, who didn't make weight and didn't wrestle anyway, by the way, should have been the main event, not these other guys from UFC. And that really rubbed Colby Covington and Luke Rockhold the wrong way. And they both went on social media and attacked Bo, and then Bo attacked back, and it was going on back and forth for a week. It got pretty nasty on social media.
So, like you said, you're signed for at least a year, maybe two.
Well, it's a year and a half right now with the extension. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway. So, with that being said, where do you see RAF being as we move along into this deal and partnership with Fox Nation?
I don't see why they would ever want to let us go. I think we're going to probably be with Fox for decades, to be honest with you. And this is not going anywhere. I was just doing a taping in Phoenix with Henry Sayedo. I don't know how to pronounce his name, his last name fully. It's Sayedo. I can spell it, but he was an Olympic gold medalist in 2008 at the Beijing Olympics. He won the gold for Team USA. He's also a two-time UFC champion. He held the title simultaneously in two different weight divisions and defended at the same time in two different weight divisions. And his brother runs a wrestling school, a preparatory school, a college just for wrestling. And everybody tells me that this is the fastest growing sport in high school and college right now, especially among women and young girls. They are all getting into wrestling. It's like the new soccer moms and soccer dads, but it's wrestling right now. And over the past few years, it's been exploding with the amount of people in school that are getting into wrestling and into these wrestling programs. And it just so happens that here is RAF, a wrestling league that can exist when somebody doesn't make the Olympic team or when their NCAA careers are done. They now have a place to go to and get paid and showcase their talent. So it's just wonderful. Everything just seemed to align up, naturally in just an organic, great way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So this isn't going anywhere. I can just tell by the reaction, by how Phoenix is really doing well with ticket sales. And it's just like every show is getting more and more hype. We're covered on ESPN and Yahoo Sports with highlights and results amongst all the MMA, not so much the wrestling, the pro wrestling, media outlets, but the MMA media outlets. Every single one covers our results, covers, everything that goes on, because the foundation of any sports like UFC, even professional wrestling, is actually wrestling itself. It's civilization's oldest sport. And a wrestler will beat a fighter any single time. If you're in a bar, if you're in a street alley, a wrestler's always going to beat a fighter anytime if they know about momentum, they know about how to use their body maneuver. It's a no-brainer. A wrestler's always going to win. So that's the core of UFC and every other major combat sport out there. It is wrestling, pure wrestling.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's funny. I'm going to see some friends who train on the West Coast next week. So
yeah. Well, look at WWE.
Field.
You have Kurt Angle, Olympic gold medalist, and you have Brock Lesnar, who's the NCAA champion, and those are two
Shelton
great
Benjamin was
ever. Shelton Benjamin as well.
athlete.
Yeah. So those are some of the biggest names ever, and they came from a wrestling background.
Absolutely. Yes, the book is Backstage Pass, Tales from Beyond the Squared Circle. Obviously, you have your hands full with the book promotion, but also RAF. Where do you see the rest of the year going for you? Is it just solely RAF, or maybe a third book somewhere along the line? Where's our head at here?
Well, this is the first book that's actually published. I've written 5 books. This one that's actually published by ECW Press, distributed by Simon & Schuster in the United States. My other books I self-published. So yeah, there's another book in me one day, because there's a lot. One thing I did not do in this book, I'm just holding up for you. I don't care. I think this is a radio show, but I didn't want to go into the drugs and the sex and all the salacious stuff, because it was so prevalent in the industry. So the stories I told where I throw shade on some people like The Rock, and you have to buy the book to hear why I throw shade on The Rock. It's stuff that is actual human behavior that I throw shade on, and things that happen behind the scenes where people are wrong or out of line, things like that. And there's mostly positive stuff in here, but there's a lot of negative stuff in there as well. And it's just telling the truth, letting the truth come out that happened behind closed doors between people that nobody ever heard of before. But yeah, there's another book of me where I can be a little bit more salacious if I choose to. There's a book of me since I wrote this one 2 years ago. That's how long the publishing process is for a real book. I've left out some of the stories that I could have told. I could write another book. I could also do a continuation from, TNA to MLW to RAF as well. But right now, my sole focus, I can't see anything change for the next 6 months. It's just RAF. I live, breathe, drink, sleep this stuff. That's how enraptured I am, how enthralled I am by this product. And again, knowing that I'm one of the early ones on board and had a big hand in creating this thing come to life. It's just not only did a dream come to life, but it's being successful and it's growing. I just want to keep on feeding that while it's growing. I don't want to slow down at all. I don't want to have my focus anywhere else except for RAF right now.
Well, David, thank you so much for the time. Great to talk to you again. And hopefully I can catch you at an RAF show somewhere down the line soon.
Well, now that I know what you look like, I'm not going to forget your face. So hopefully I can catch you in RAF show down the line sometime soon.
Absolutely.
Or MLW's coming to Chattanooga. And I don't know if you ever come to Chattanooga. That's where I live. They're going to be playing at a venue 2 blocks away from me. So if you come to the MLW Major League Wrestling show, I'll be there just saying hi to friends. That's in May.
Absolutely. So, David, thank you so much for the time.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Hey folks, looking for the ultimate destination for the nerd enthusiasts and collectors? Well, we found the spot for you. Nerds Nest Collectibles is a haven for nerds, geeks, and fans alike, as they have many different products and certainly more to come. Make sure you go ahead and visit them at nerdsnestcollectibles.com. Check them out.
So I'm Tim Hornbaker, the author of The Last Real World Champion, The Legacy of Nature Boy Ric Flair, and you're listening to Crazy Train Radio.